This is The Yay. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is The Yay, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
As always, we are sponsored by Central Works, a new play theater headed up by Gary Graves and Jan Leifler. Central Works, reinventing theater one play at a time. We want to always thank Central Works for sponsoring us for our second year with our sponsorship, and our wonderful consulting producer, Mallory Samara. And we have a wonderful guest. She's back, I think, the third time. Jeannie Barroga. Not I think, it is the third time.
The fourth. I was looking it up. It was like all in just 2017. There were three of them in 2017. So I thought, wow, okay.
Well, we were just getting started. So.
Well, the first time we were just getting to know you, and then the second time you wanted to talk about walls because you were fired up because someone had used the title of your play. It's one of those things where, okay, I'm going to see the play Walls, but which walls is it? And so that was
good memory.
troubling thing that happened at the time. And speaking of walls, you received the National Endowment for the Arts Award for Walls. Mm-hmm. Isn't that right, Jeannie?
Yeah, that was it. That was the first one. And
yeah.
Kicked everything into overdrive. It's now in a lot of theses and syllabi, and it's in books, and so it hit a chord with the country, it seems. So
yeah, that's wonderful, and it's a tribute to I'm just going to say your greatness. I mean, Stanford University has Stanford University has your books. You've been on the Turn Right at the Water Buffalo, and we're going to talk about that, is on the Regent Press's bestsellers list. So we're going to talk about all that. But how are you doing, Jeannie, within the midst of COVID-19?
I was going over that yesterday, thinking my life before COVID and after, and because, and Norman knows this, I had 2 hip replacements in an 8-month period. So I was homebound most of COVID time, and which made it easy or possible to write Turn Right with the Water Buffalo. But it was a plus and a minus. I got that kind of work stuff, but it also kept me away, sort of off the grid, and listening to the last interview you had with Gold, I was like, oh my God, look at all this stuff that's happening because of this COVID atmosphere. People have become very, very unique in wanting to present their art forms in whatever possible way they could. And I went, they're doing it. Oh, yeah. So I'm doing well as far as the hip replacement. I've gotten rid of my cane at the beginning of the year, so yay for that. And so yeah, no, it's like it's good because all these things are happening this year. So I kind of get on the horse again,
Yeah, and how's your husband? Is he doing well?
Tony is wonderful. Tony is he's the man. He's been working really hard at the center and being moved up and things like that. So they depend on him a lot for what he does over there. And I did, because I was recovering. He was working. He'd come home for lunch, make me lunch, go back to work, come back, make dinner. It was, above and beyond the call of duty. So he's my hero.
Wow. Well, now see, that's love.
Yeah.
When we talk about love, and of course we're a week away from Valentine's Day, love can be one of these, touchy feeling when everything is wonderful. Oh, sweetheart, I love you and all this stuff. But when you get sick and when you really need someone to be there, when you're down, and the person is there, that's when you know that you are loved. Yeah. Speaking of love, Norman, how are you?
Also,
how's Mara?
That's when they're the most annoying too.
Here we go.
On your arm.
No. I'm just teasing. The big things for me, I just interviewed with SF Shakes just to direct a reading. So I don't know if that's a big deal or not a big deal, but they made the interview big. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
SF Shakes, you know.
And I'm just recovering from, I don't know what it was, but for about a week, I went from drippy sinus stuff to sore throat. Finally kind of got panicked, and I ran out to get a test, and I am clear.
Is that what's on your arm?
Oh crap. Yes, I have to do no, this is totally unrelated. I am doing so I'm going to actually be quiet for a while because I am doing a market research thing on blood pressure. This is a Bluetooth blood pressure cuff. I have a smartwatch and
Wow.
a iPhone.
You're plugged in. Wow.
And every day I have to take my blood pressure 3 times a day.
It's funny. I was just talking
Two
to a
times
friend
a
of
day. 3 times, 2 times a day.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the medical industry just a couple of hours ago, and we were talking about the merging between technology and the medical industry, both for the good and for the bad. You know, there are some folks who believe that it's a little too much, but it's amazing. It's pretty cool. Today's technology. All righty. So it sounds like COVID-19 has not hit you, Jeannie, and your family at all.
Oh, well, since it began, I lost 7 family members, not to COVID, but everything else. So it's still been a very, impactful period that way. But we have been lucky ourselves. We have not contracted anything at all. So
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that. It's funny. You had written Aurora, and I was participated in that. Um, some bad current events, but apparently last night there was a shooting at Aurora. I don't know if you knew that, Jeannie.
Another one. Oh my God.
It happened at a church. I think it was not so much a mass shooting, but I guess it was a personal thing. But someone walked into a church and shot a woman and 2 men. The woman died, and 2 men are still in critical condition.
Wow.
But the minute I heard Aurora, I immediately thought of you.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to indulge in that. Also, this is really, really sad. I mean, not that I bring up all these sad stuff, but Chelsea Christ, Miss America in 2019. I'm sure you two have heard about this, but she committed suicide. She jumped off of
I heard about that.
a Manhattan patio, and the mother wanted to bring awareness to functioning. How she say it? She suffered from functioning depression, high functioning depression. And it's something I really have to talk about more. I've talked with a lot of my Black friends, especially those. There's a friend of mine that I graduated from high school with, and we've talked about doing a Black podcast to talk about Black mental health, because it's really, really it's serious, and it's something that's not talked about. And it's not just Black mental health, but really all mental health, especially in the age of COVID, because we're more isolated. And there's some folks like, Eugenie, you had talked about how writers are a bit insulated and we sort of get into our heads, so the isolation doesn't affect us. But other folks, they can't stand it at all. They really need social interaction.
Well, it's a failing in our culture, I'd say.
Yeah, very much so.
And I would say that adding to that, and given the play that Norman and Golda were in on Thursday too, teen suicide since COVID is alarming. It's so alarming. And I really feel for them. I think, first of all, it's affecting their education. How educated are they going to be, this whole generation? And the fact that they've got to deal with that, and the fact of growing up and teen years and social pressures, all that on top of a pandemic. The numbers alarmed me. I was really. I felt really helpless about what can we do for our next generations. They're our hope,
And I'd forgotten that was the twist in that play. That's Remnants is the play. Jeannie's one of Jeannie's older plays that we brought back for a reading with the Hawaii Playwrights group, and it's wonderful that it catches you off guard, because we're hoping. The audience is set up to hope, and she's hopeful. She's finding a way to express herself, but the more she gets into it, the more it just becomes toxic for her.
Sensitive souls, and a sensitive age period. So a lot of things going on.
Yeah. And when I think of, talking about this play, I wish I was involved in that, or, just to hear it, because it sounds interesting. But also your play Aurora, you don't shy away from tragedy. You don't shy away from loss. And I remember listening to our, I think the second to last podcast, but also remembering Aurora. We need more. When we think about theater, we think about entertainment. Just entertain me. Just get me away from thinking about reality. But sometimes I think the theater that draws me are the theater that brings reality to perspective and helps me understand the pain that I'm going through. I mean, there's a reason why Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for Joker, because, you know, he puts a finger on what's happening out in the world and how we're feeling. It's almost like, you know, if a person doesn't feel like crying, if the actor cries, if the playwright puts it all in perspective, then the audience can appreciate it more. I mean, don't you feel that way?
Yeah, no, I think that's the real challenge of writing a play for more than one person. You know, there's going to be all these various types of people who are react in their own ways. I've had people who actually say, you know, does everything have to be so depressing? And I think, well, no, everything doesn't have to be so depressing. But if you look at the play, you can see that there are the hills and valleys and the curbs and the jokes and the silliness, and then there's somber periods, and there are just heartfelt, very not depressing, but they're downs, they're blues. It's the blues. So that's the challenge for the writer, to be able to maneuver through that and you know, kind of tease these different emotions to the foreground, because I think a lot of people put a lot of energy into squelching a lot of emotions, and theater, you can see it on their faces when the tears come or the laughter comes. It's like, well, when was the last time that happened for you? You know? So yeah, there's a what do you call it? A goal that I think writers need to be aware of, to address as many emotions as they can and be truthful about it, because then it will ring true when it's not. You know, it's like, not buying it, you know?
Yeah. But you do a good enough job to not, you know, you can address depression or address pain on stage, but not leave the audience there. You know, you do a good job in, you know, putting a nice button on the end to say, hey, there is some hope. I mean, you know, when I think about Aurora, you know, there is some closure that I think the father has. So, you know, that's
well, even for the Thursday play, I think people were kind of laying bets in a way, like, oh, we thought for sure that no, they weren't going to make it. You know, I said, no, I thought they were going to get back together. Oh, well, I thought, you know, and it was specifically left open.
Did you change that? Because I felt like the first time I read through it, I felt like that was like the end of the relationship, and it was just sort of more of a button. And now it feels more like you know, this is the relationship. This is what the relationship is. Whether it survives or not, this is what it is. Yeah. This play is not about him suddenly going, oh, I'm going to be a better person.
Yeah. Well, truthfully, it's so long ago.
Someplace else.
It's so long ago. I believe I did sort of keep that as the same ending, but I strengthened it more. It was like more of that response that I got the other night was like people were, like I said, kind of laying bets, like they are, no, they're not. Yeah. I was like, okay, good.
It felt more open-ended, and we seem to be in the era of the open-ended ending, which is fine.
Yep, not a problem with that at all. Howard Hessman, Dr. Johnny Fever. I mean, all of us are of the generation where we remember WKRP in Cincinnati. Oh, it just hurt me.
Yeah,
he's gone. Dr. Johnny Fever is gone.
But more than that, it turns out he was huge in the Chicago scene, in the Chicago theater and improv scene.
Mm.
Oh, so wow.
And when you look at his, you know, his film history, you see him in little weird roles all over the place, and he's basically that guy. But that was a persona that he created. And, you know, the amount of love that people have expressed towards him, and the amount of people who have intersected with him at some point that we didn't know about. And it's like, this is not like the famous, all the people from, you know, WKRP came out and said, yay. It was all kinds of folks.
Yeah. He's one of those actors. like Samuel L. Jackson and a couple of others, where they didn't begin in their 20s or their teens, or they didn't become discovered as the superstar. They
Right.
had other things, and they were doing a lot of regional theater or
Mhm.
comedy skits. And then they got discovered, and they could bring all of that energy or in that experience.
Hmm.
Like I
Mhm.
think he actually was a radio DJ before he became Dr. Johnny Fever,
Mhm.
which gave his character all that more authenticity. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. It just broke my heart. It was like, oh my God, my past is dying. I mean,
Ah!
Hmm. Hmm.
um, we were talking off mic about there's been some books bannings in Tennessee. They've
Mm.
teachers have I think the entire state of Tennessee has banned the book Mouse. And we were talking about and we're about to talk about your book, Turn Right at the Water Buffalo. But there's still the culture war that's happening in America, where we think that we've gone past, the traditional or Puritan thoughts or whatever. It's 2022, so we're more advanced, as Americans. But then we're still talking about, oh, we can't have these, horrible books. I mean, I think the reason they gave for banning Mouse, which for those who don't know, is a wonderful book that talks about the Holocaust, and instead of actual people, they're mouse, and the Nazis are cats, I think.
Right.
And Norman, I think you have the book as well.
Ah,
That's Tennessee. That is Tennessee burning.
Tennessee today.
People tossing books into a big bonfire.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
would think we're beyond that and we're past that, but it just reminds me that, if you're in America, you're free depending upon what state you're in. I feel free as a black man in California, but if I were in Alabama, I wouldn't feel so free.
Right.
If you're a woman who wants to have an abortion, you're freer in Oregon than you are in, let's say, Tennessee. And that's horrible. That's not should be what America
Texas.
is.
Well, and I would say, even as a black man, California is not safe. There are safe zones in California.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. And like I said, America should not be that way at all. And we've talked
Right.
about, and I think the justification they gave for, apparently there's a section in Mouse where there is a naked woman or a naked female
Right.
mouse, which is hung. I think a middle-aged, woman that's hung, and it's not for titillation. It's to show the extremity of the violence
Of the history.
of the history.
Yeah.
So
I, I,
go
I,
ahead.
I'm keying into what you're saying, that we should know better, I guess. And no, it's something that is almost like a flow. It's like an ebb and tide, because I remember being in the late 50s, early 60s, and maybe it was because I was going to a Catholic school, but there were so many book bannings then, because
Right.
it offended certain Catholics, right? And
Right.
those bonfires were as big as the one you just showed.
Yep.
So it never made sense to me as a child. Then it was like, what did those books ever do to you that you're
Mhm.
burning it?
Right.
And of course they're talking about subject matters that, as a 10, 12-year old, you at that point, we weren't as sophisticated, then we didn't have the internet. If our parents told us first before we even set foot in school, fine, but it wasn't that atmosphere then. And it just seemed to be a lot easier to, oh, let's tag this one to burn, well, here's another one, let's put this in the pile. And again, it's always in the hands of the people who are making the decisions for everyone else.
Right.
So this country now, they've got that very vociferous other side, and it's emanating in all the other different things, including book burning. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, I think, for where this country is heading. I'm very, very concerned about the election process being just railroaded because of all these laws that they can pass on their own. They can do that.
Do you
That's
mean
alarming to me.
do you mean the midterms, or do you mean 2024?
I'm talking about the whole idea of setting up a system where, okay, this group can't go in at a certain time on Sunday, or this part of the country, that's
The
like I have
governor
friends.
can
I have
overturn the election. The governor can just say, yeah, no, that we don't. Yeah.
that's it. Yeah,
Arizona is trying to pass that right now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, it just disheartened me when the Voting Rights Act was turned down, didn't make it. And you even had Democrats like Joe Manchin, and I think there was one other that I don't think they voted for it. I may
Kyrsten
be,
Sinema.
yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, Jeannie, and I wonder if the Trump phenomena has brought this out because
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
yeah, I didn't really see this in the 90s or even in the aughts. And I thought that we had really turned a corner. Um, and it's not even about protecting the kids. It's really about protecting
Right.
your own ideology and
Mhm,
having your kids buy into your
mhm,
ideology.
Mhm.
mhm.
And it's very, very sad. I'm surprised at the anti-Semitism. I mean, I don't even know if that is anti-Semitism because it
It
ties into
is.
Whoopi Goldberg. Because Whoopi Goldberg, she made some comments about the Holocaust, saying
It
that it
is. It
wasn't.
is not her anti-Semitism. It
Yeah,
is. It is anti-Semitism.
yeah. And I don't think Whoopi Goldberg is an anti-Semite. I think that she's misunderstood. She's basically saying, well, these are really about two privileged white groups that went against each other, and that explains why 6 million Jews were killed. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't think that Jews are a minority?
Mm.
So
Well,
it's a little,
specifically a race. So remember, race is a social construct. It doesn't exist. It's fictional. They called the Jews a race. They were exterminating the Jewish race. And once that was made clear to her, she immediately apologized, which I love. I'm
yeah.
glad that she stepped up.
Did you and Mara have any conversations about that, or you guys
Oh yeah,
didn't even? Yeah,
very uncomfortable.
yeah,
Because she was just stunned. She was like, how could she possibly do that? And I'm like, because she was raised in America and in the American educational system, where I don't remember specifically hearing the word Holocaust in school, and
yeah.
my whole adult life, I hear Holocaust deniers about as much as I hear about the Holocaust.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
which is
Mm.
a commentary on the the school system, public school system. And you're right. We didn't really have an education about it at all. I had to get that education after I came from school. But as far as the cancel culture, I mean, she did apologize, and I think that if there's something to be said about cancel culture, you can point out when someone is wrong, but allow them to apologize and allow them to say, I'm wrong. I need to change the way that I think.
Yeah.
So I hope that we've turned the corner because I really don't think that Whoopi is a bad person. She was misunderstood.
I mean,
Um,
she's ignorant.
yeah,
She confidently spoke her truth, which was the truth that she's been educated in.
hmm
So that's an American truth. And
hmm
it turns out that is completely based on anti-Semitism. It is nothing more than anti-Semitism. It is
yep,
wrong. And I'm not one of those people going, "Oh, they shouldn't have pulled her off the air." I'm like, they told her to take a 2-week suspension and think about it. And she's gone out on interviews. And I'm like, great, that's exactly what she should be doing. Because what she's been doing, the day they suspended her, she had brought some Jewish leaders in to
there you
talk
go.
about this.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, that's exactly what should be happening now. If she did that for 2 weeks, that would move the needle on this hugely.
exactly. Start the conversation. Don't shut up the conversation. To start the conversation and let's get more educated about these things.
Yeah.
And one last thing, not a fun thing, whatever, but a Moroccan child was trapped in is trapped in a well for 5 days. So on Tuesday, this happened in Morocco. A young child, I don't know how old he is, but he fell in a well. And as of right now, they're trying to dig him out. Luckily, he's okay. They're feeding him and he's breathing and all that stuff. I'm sure he's very traumatized. But it reminded me of, remember baby Jessica, who was
Oh
trapped in a
yeah,
well in
long time
Texas?
ago. Sure.
Mhm. Yeah. So it reminded me of that. So I hope that that kid comes out well. All right. So let's
Well, I would say one last positive thing is
yes.
um, the gerrymandering that's been going on. At least two states have gone, no, you can't do that. And like North Carolina is the most recent one. They were told, no, that is clearly racist.
Mhm,
You
Good.
know, there's a racial bias in that. You've got 18 days, I think, something like that, to redo the map, and you need to show us your homework. You need to show us how you are justifying redistricting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. The people who are finally going to say, that's it. That's enough. If no one else is going to step to the forefront and say, this is just absolutely unacceptable.
Right.
And they're in that position to do that more than the rest of us, really. Right. It's like, okay, there's hope. To me, there's hope that, okay, you were voted in for a reason and you're doing your job, and thank you. And where's the rest of you?
Exactly. And
Totally.
That's the operative word. Where's the rest of you? Because, you can have it happen in one state, but it really needs to happen everywhere. But you're absolutely right. And that ties into what you were saying, Jeannie, about because really democracy is based on, our ability to vote and our ability to have representation. And that's jeopardized for little ticky-tack things. And, then we have a problem. It's not America anymore. Yeah. Let's talk about your book, Turn Right at the Water Buffalo, because we talked about this. Did you begin this in 2017? I mean, when did you begin?
That's when I picked it up fully, because it had been in my mind since 1989. And it was the year 2000, when I sort of pitched it to my husband, Tony, and Ron Simons, who is a Broadway producer. He's the one who's doing Colored Girls right now, and the all-male African-American cast, Black American cast. He's just an amazing person. And so they're listening to this story as I'm orally telling them. They said, you should write this. 2000. That was 2000. So here it is, 2017. And I've got all the notes. They're spread all over the house. I figured, okay, let's just jump on this and do this, because it seems like I mention it to people and they're interested. So yeah, it was officially launched December 24th, which is what I aimed for, a Christmas crowd, let's say. And as you mentioned before, it is now on the publisher's bestseller list. That's Regent Press. That's based in Oakland. They do primarily local writers. So if people have not heard of them, they are just amazing. They've been around for 30 some years. Their track record, when I went to their house for a Christmas party, was just like bookcase after bookcase of all the books that they had published over time. I was really impressed. So when I approached him in August, I said, I got that book. You still interested? He said, let's do it. So boom.
Right on. It's an amazing accomplishment. And just reading, I don't have the book, physically in my hand. But basically, you're talking about a Americanized Filipina, Lainey Cortez, and she visits. It's a 42nd family reunion. She goes back to the Philippines, but she's sort of disconnected from her own culture, and it's a way to reconnect. She reconnects, I guess, with her culture, and all sorts of interesting things happen within the book and within Lainey sort of reintroducing herself to the Philippines.
Right. Well, the idea back then and still now today really is a theme of identity. And this was something that I had gone through in my younger years as well, because being raised by both a Visayan mother and a Ilocano father, they were of the mind that you're in America now, you learn English. We're not going to teach you the language. And we're lucky if we had the things that would represent the Philippines back then. Like there's the shield of moral weapons, and then there's the water buffalo, and then there's the Kulintang dancers, and it's like you walk into a house like that, they know it, and we don't, So when my mother had this opportunity to go back for her reunion, I figured, okay, I think I should do this, because at that point I was writing a lot. I was actually teaching some Filipino students that had come in from Manila. They were instrumental in the Manila takeover of Marcos's regime, and they were so on top of it. They knew exactly what was going on, and I was envious. I was asking questions constantly, and I figured, here's a chance I can go myself, and see. So the book is fiction, but there were things that happened to me, myself, and to people around me, and I figured this would make an incredible story, to put this all together and just show the lens of what I consider. A friend thanked me for this. She said, when I said a clueless Filipino American, and being introduced to this atmosphere post Marcos. It was 3 years after Marcos had been deposed. There was so much going on there, and just generally, I can still say that people really don't quite know what a Filipino is, much as Filipino history.
Right.
And I'm yeah, and it's becoming more and more accessible now, let's say, because there is the internet. We didn't have that back in the 80s, and especially when we were growing up. And the idea that you've got to be that type of person too, who will do the research, the hard research, depending on your drive and your interest. If you really are curious to know, this was the source to writing it and making it speak to people who were in the same boat. I've gotten that a lot from people who say, I always wanted to know more about my culture and this book, and this is my period, my age group. So it was interesting to see that there was that kind of response.
Yeah, it is wonderful, and it touches on to, and I think it's something that we talked about because you were on my other podcast, which has gone dormant. I'm an American too, where we talked about assimilation, and I think it's one of the things that a lot of parents who send their children to America, or people who come to America, worry about: am I going to lose my culture? Am I going to not be the person that I was? I've talked to friends who are from Vietnam, who are from China, from Japan, from Europe. And the drive to be Americanized. Oh, I need to fit in. I need to fit in with my job. I need to fit in with my friends. They're all going to a Giants game, so I got to wear the Giants jersey and be American to fit in. Your book talks about, I would think, I wouldn't say the dangers of assimilation, but you have, Lainey drifts away. She's been American because she was brought up in America, but now she reconnects. It's almost like touching the proverbial wood, touching something natural, going back to her heritage. It's something that can apply to anyone, whether you're African American, let's say, going to Africa, or going back to Italy if you're Italian. So I think it's a universal thing. But just assimilation, I mean, do you think that the book talks about, I guess, the dangers of assimilation, of being too American and moving too far away from your culture?
Oh yeah, it constantly refers back to that. There are moments where it's at the forefront, and then there are times it just manifests in the background. And again, she's observing and seeing, oh my God, why didn't I know this? Why do I feel like a fish out of water? And because I wasn't taught that at the time. And again, it's not like to say, oh, it's all the parents' fault. It's the parents under a pressure to come from another country and say, in their actions, I deserve to be here. I can do here. I can live here. I can contribute here. I'm somebody. And I've got these kids. I'm raising them to be contributors to this American society. So there's that pressure. It's a social pressure that I didn't quite understand until, of course, I grew up and heard more about, even why did you come here? Why did you come here? Was it really that bad there? And he said that America was, that was heaven. If you could make it somehow to America, even as an overseas worker, or a maid, or a nurse, or as it moved up into another strata of careers, a doctor, it's like you're constantly proving yourself, and I saw that with my parents a lot. They would change a face as they go into a crowd that was predominantly white.
It reminds me so much,
Code
Norman and I, we were
switching.
talking about code switching. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It hit. And I think America has a lot to blame for that. I mean, if because we put pressure, whether it be the job workforce, so let's say dating,
Mhm.
or let's say, I don't know, getting a house. I don't know if it was you or someone was saying that they, I think it was a Filipina. Was it you, Jeannie, who was saying that your father tried to buy a house, and I guess they were told no. It may not have been you. I think it was someone else.
Mhm.
But I think that American culture, where it comes from school, comes from church, comes from your neighborhood, like I said, from dating or from the job, forces you, hey, you need to push away that other cultural stuff. And you're in America now, you need to speak this language. And it's a really, really horrible thing. Like we had on our show, you weren't here, Norman, Circle Dai. She is a Chinese American, and she has a very thick Chinese accent. And she's talked about, going out for roles and, let's say, not getting roles because she isn't Americanized enough. I think Ben Couch, who is British, he's even talked about, not, being Americanized or
All
whatever.
right.
And it's a I mean, Norman, have you worked, I mean, getting it back into theater, have you worked with a lot of folks who are not American born, and has it been an issue? Well, if they've been cast, it shouldn't be an issue at all, right?
It's different. I'll never forget Buffaloed. Jeannie, you remember we were in San Jose, we're having auditions. This young guy comes in and he was just fantastic. He was wonderful. And we'd given him sides from the play. He read through, he was wonderful. And then they asked him to do something else, and he suddenly like, well, I could do that. Sorry, it's hard to do the accent. I could do that. I mean, I could, but I'd have to. And we all were just stunned. It's like, where the hell did that come from? He's British. He's
And he
from
was
the
doing he
UK.
was doing a Southern accent in his audition, and we
Yeah,
bought it. We bought it.
right. We were stunned. So yeah, I mean, it comes up, and it's always that challenge. I knew this already, but that just reinforced that lesson. You can't walk in the door and go, "Hi, I'm Norman G. I'd like to, I'm going to audition for this role. It's good to meet you," and then get up there and go, "Oh, I'm a big, bad, scary guy." People aren't going to buy it. You really have to walk in the door kind of like, "Hi, Norman G."
Yeah, you sort of have to. It's interesting. There's a book that just came out called Method Acting by Isaac Butler, and it sort of gets into, getting into the role, before you walk onto the stage, and the pros and the cons of it. I'm not going to get too deep into that,
Yeah.
but check it out. Um,
Excuse me, but would you mind? Is there a way to screen share and at least show the cover of the book? Is there?
oh, well, I don't want to do too much moving around here.
Okay.
I'll put a link to it.
Okay.
Because it talks a lot about shoot, I wish I'm going to have to but it gets into.
Put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, I could do that as well.
No, because that way I can also then get it. Oh, I guess I have it. I have it in the email.
Yeah, I can do that. I
the
can
book
do the
gets
three
into.
files too.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can share it from the email. Don't worry about it,
Yeah,
Rich.
that's okay. Because the
Keep
book gets
rolling.
into. I'm just going to touch onto it because I have another thought about just being Philippine, just the Philippine culture. But the book talks about. I guess there are three splits into method acting. So Stanislavski, of course, taught it, and then there were three individuals that came to America. Lee Strasberg, who focused on improv and emotional recall. Then you had Stella Adler, who focused more on imagination and external research.
Yeah.
And then Meisner, who just focused on just exist on stage. That's it. Just live as truthfully as possible. And there are extremes that goes into it. I mean, there are stories about individuals who just lose a bunch of weight. Or I had a friend of mine, I was a stage manager, and he was like, I got to be drunk on stage, so I'm just going to just drink. Just give me some liquor. And I'm like, I'm not adding that to the prop
Not a
list.
good idea.
So it's a fascinating book, and we'll get into that. But Jeannie, I had a question for you. It appears, so I'm getting personal, but I went on a date with a Philippine chick, and I was like, wow, it's so horrible what Duterte is doing. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's fantastic. He's getting rid of this and that and the other. And it just dawned on me, it's as if there are two Philippine cultures that exist simultaneously.
Mm.
When I speak to, like I've spoke to a bunch of Bindle stiffers, Areen Almario and, Golda that we
Was at
had
the
the interview
reading the
with.
other night.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you speak to, let's say Philippines who are here in America, they're like, hey, it's freedom and, it's wonderful to talk about Philippine culture. And when I talk to Mike Dorado, it's about freedom and, inclusivity and all that sort of stuff. But then I speak to people who are actually from the Philippines. I mean, like I've had my ex-girlfriend, the last ex-girlfriend I had, she talked about being a devout Catholic and never, getting an abortion and the strictness. And it just occurred to me, there are those, like you mentioned, immediately after Marcos, I think there was Corazon Aquino who became president. Is that correct?
Right.
Right after, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a dude named Estrada.
Yes.
Who was sort of the tough man.
The actor. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, he was an actor?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like, I guess our version of Donald Trump, although who knows, Duterte may be the version of Donald Trump. But you have like a very conservative Philippine who is more the Estrada type or the Duterte type, who's very strict and, and law and order. And, it's almost like being in the deep South or whatever. And then you have, let's say, those who are like Corazon Aquino and her son, Benin Aquino. And those who are there, I guess my question is, are there two distinct Philippine cultures happening at the same time?
Yeah, no, because I mean, this is something I told somebody just recently, that there was no middle class really up until the 50s or 60s in the Philippines. It was just upper class and lower class. And since then, it's been more of that middle class range that came to being, I think because of all the technology that was available, because there was more coming over from the Philippines early on. When the kids are young, they're going to pursue their doctors' careers, and so there was something that was created really pretty recently, I'd say. That's only last 50 years. But before then, it was only upper class and lower class. And again, it's who's the one who controls the PR and the media over there. Well, right now it's pretty much dominated by Duterte, and one by one, of course, you can tell the people who are trying to tell the truth. The one who won the award, Marie Ressa, she was given the award, and she was on the cover of oh God, what was it? But she was so brave as an editor for her newspaper.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was lauded around the world that thank you for being brave enough to tell us the other side of the news, because not everyone, but there was that element that would believe that Duterte is just the best thing that happened, just like Trump did. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they were both in charge in their countries at the same time, because right. Of course, they're buddies. You can see these.
Well, yeah, they clearly recognized each other.
Yeah, they saw they were doing it the same way.
Oh no, that guy's doing it right.
Right. But to hear, the people who have come over recently, let's say, and believe that Duterte's been doing the best he can for their country, you do wonder what are your sources? What are you reading? Who are you listening to? Because from our end, we're thinking, this sounds horrible. People are being killed left and right. For essentially, it started about the drug war against drugs. It moved very quickly away from that. The numbers of people who were killed within the first 3 months was astounding, and less news came out about that. So if that's the news that they're believing and being fed back there, so when they come over here and they go, well, this is what we need. They need to be taken off the streets. They need to be killed. They need, but not all of them are drug dealers or drug dealers who have actually come in and said, I'm going to give myself up. I just don't want to do this anymore. I please just accept that I'm done with this. And they come in and they died. So either they did or they didn't. Now, who are you going to believe? What news source or what influence are you going to believe in order to live your life under those conditions? Yeah, I'm sure people here see under Trump, oh, my IRA and everything I've invested in, it's sky high because Trump is in charge. Like quantum leap. And same thing in a country like that, they see what personally is happening to their finances or their way of living, and they're going to attribute to the person in charge, and not knowing that there are all these other permutations that are happening in between.
If he had nothing to do with it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it also taps into, there is a Philippine culture which is very traditional and very conservative. Where there is, a strong Catholic presence, there is maybe a need. I haven't been to the Philippines, but maybe there is a need for maybe searching for normalcy, or searching of a fictional, what about the good old days where, things or life was just simple and normal. And because I think that's what powers the Trumpians or the far right now.
Well, let me tell you about the state of religion. But from what I see in the Philippines, they are diehard Catholics, and that means no divorce, but there's a lot of mistresses, so there are things that they attribute to being the Catholic influences, but it's wiggle room. It's wiggle room, but it is very, very dominated by that bubble, that if you say this is what Catholics do, this is what the Pope says, this is what has been passed on, this is still what the padres that took over the Philippines when the Americans came in, and when the Spanish took over before that. It's still that very Catholic overview that says, you do what I tell you, don't do what I do, So it's kind of a little hard to talk about that without taking into account that religion rules some of these people's lives to the nth,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And it reminded me, I have a good friend of mine, Mar Stevens, who frequents Africa a lot. She's very, very connected to the African culture. And we were talking about corporal punishment. We were talking about, like beating our children. She was like, we've learned so much from our oppressors that we sometimes do the same thing to ourselves. And when you talk about, the Padres, it's so easy to live in a almost a what do you call it, the totalitarian type state or whatever, where the father tells you what to do. You don't do a lot of thinking. It's like, well, dad says we got to do it, so we got to do it. And I guess there are people who fall in line with that line of thinking. It's like, well, the church says to do that, the pastor says to do that. Forget about thinking, forget about my own freedom, forget about individuality.
And I think it's interesting that you happen to run into people who are, let's say, that diehard about it, because it's that, of course, same thing. It's not the whole country. Yeah. That's not the whole country.
And the mother of all ironies is if it's that great, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So let's get into the book. I'm interested because we do have some friends of ours, playwright friends, like I think of Regent Portman, who has also transitioned from being a playwright to actual writing. I mean, not actual writing, but writing a book, a novelist. And what has that transition been like? And what is the business behind that? Do you just need a publisher? Can you talk about the business of it?
Oh my God. It is a whole new mindset. It's like, just putting on a whole different hat. That's the thing I was struggling with, is trying to figure, okay, how can I apply it by example, by how I approached theater, in the promotion of it, as opposed to the craft of it, because I can write play scripts. I can write that, I would like to believe I can write, period. So that was the challenge, to say, okay, let's look at the inner workings of what makes a good novel, what makes a good story, a good fiction story, a good flow, an arc. I'm thinking, oh, there's a lot of similarities. Okay, if I can do that, and I've been doing it in playwriting, I should be able to move that over into novel writing. Wasn't easy. I mean, that's why, year 2000, and here 2017, 17 years of really trying to maneuver through that. And I mean, I did the whole thing. I did the research about book publishers and agents. I did the pitches. I went to the classes. I took the course on marketing, and I'm thinking like, this is far too, let's say, energy draining. Let's say, I just want to write it. I'm going to believe that the publisher who sees the worth in the book is gonna do it, and that's pretty much what happened. It was like putting it out in the universe. And a friend of mine who was being published by Regent Press, he was having a Christmas party, and said, "Yeah, come visit. Come share. We've been at it 30 years now, or something." So I went and I met the publisher. And I said, "So you do mostly local writers?" And he said, "Yeah." And he's showing me the books. And I said, "Well, I have a book, and of course the pitch starts and he goes, "Well, that sounds like something we do." And I went, "Oh, well, maybe we should talk about that a little bit more, And I think once I got that business side, at least in a overall view, it's like, okay, there's this, and this. All right, I'm aware of it. Can I get back to writing?
Right. It's a whole
because I really felt like it's going to happen because I've done that kind of homework. So I would have to say the people who really, and this is different. This is indie publishing. That's what, it's like you're really pretty much paying for most of it to be printed. But when you get under the wing of big people, who will take over the whole ball of wax, it's a lot of contracts. It's a lot of pre-work about, okay, here's a proposal. Here's you come up with an idea of what your market, who writes like you, who are you going to be up against? What's the subject matter that's out there? What's the subject matter that's been out there and it's already old? So all this stuff, I'm going like, I just want to write, but it did affect my writing. It was like, okay, I know this story has not been told from this point of view before. I know that coming at it from, let's say, a mother-daughter relationship in this setting, I don't believe that that's been done in this manner before. So you try to zero in on what's going to be its specificity, and it's got to be good writing. And that made it easier for me to take on the whole ball of wax. It's like I had to know I had the writing down before thinking about all the other permutations of how to get it in print. But I still did the homework. You still have to do the homework. You still should be aware that there's other steps besides the theater promotion, let's say,
Yeah, no. And it sounds like that. The very fact that you knew a friend of yours who had also been published and you can have that dinner,
big difference.
That was a big help. Did you need a lawyer?
No, I've got two lawyers now, but not for that. No, not because it was just a contract between myself and the publisher.
Okay.
And it worked out better that way for me. It may not work out for a lot of other people. Maybe they think it's just too,
well, maybe it's cheap,
too grassroots in a way, let's say.
Yeah. Maybe it's cheaper. Obviously, if you include a lawyer, that's more money that you have to pay the lawyer.
Right.
But it sounds like you could navigate it all by yourself with the publisher. And okay, well, that's cool. I was just thinking to myself, as a playwright becoming a novelist, who is also a novelist because you're still a playwright, I think it gives you an advantage, because I know when I pick up a book, when I pick up a play, I know there's going to be objectives, there's going to be characters, there's going to be, let's say, one scene will focus on this and another scene will focus on that. So I know there's going to be an ebb and flow in the storyline driven by dialogue. With a novel, I really don't know how long I'm going to be reading about how, the trees were green and it was summertime and, I'm reminiscing to myself and I'm like, oh my goodness, how long do I have to go through? So I think, would you say that being a playwright gives you an advantage as a novelist because you know how to, let's say, write about a particular air quote scene.
I think it made a difference, particularly because I was thinking that too. And looking at covers, I was saying how big, I mean, and this is something really to be aware of, just how big the name was versus the title. I went, okay, well, everyone knows Michael Lewis, so his name can be bigger than the title. You put my name big, Jeannie Barroga. I don't think people know me as an author, as a fiction writer, but they would know me as a playwright, you know? And so that was the other thing too, is like, what's your social media like? Would you be able to push your work on your own if it's not going as fast as you want to? I said, yeah, I think I got kind of a pretty good social media, you know, I think I can do that, you know. But I really looked at it and I thought, okay, I've got to put something on here that it shows that, you know, I'm a playwright going into the novel writing world. So I put down that, you know, this award-winning playwright, this is her first fiction novel, and that was on the back. So it was being upfront, you know, no, this is not a writer as such, but I am a writer of merit because I've written a lot of plays. So it was just, again, trying to balance what does a person look at when they see a book on display. I don't know that name, but boy, it's an interesting title. Turn right at the right book. Oh, it's kind of a pretty book. You know, it's all these different things that you have to become well versed in order to make the jump, you know.
Yeah, I would think that a publisher would say, well, let's put it in the Philippine community. Let's say there's, you know, an older Philippine person. I imagine younger people still read books because, you know, book reading has become almost a fallacy for younger folks unless their teacher tells them to. But I imagine an older person would say, hey, you know, there's a new Philippine book out, and what does that mean? Turn right at the buffalo. Maybe turn right at the water buffalo. I mean, is that like a common phrase, or maybe it's a phrase that someone may have heard?
Yeah, well, okay, most of the people that have been buying it so far, the majority of them are non-Filipinos, let's put it that way, which was a incredible surprise, you know. But I made my social media be as diverse as I possibly could too, you know. So I think it's still circulating throughout the Filipino community let's put it, a wait and see attitude. You know, let's see if so and so buys it, then maybe I'll buy it. And
I'm sorry, will it be translated in Tagalog, do you think? Or is that
that's something way down the line I haven't even, you know, it's a step at a time. Right now I'm holding off even having it put on audio, you know. Let's just see what happens, you know. And again, if you take it to somebody, one of the big companies, big publishers, they'll say, "Whoa, we're going to completely inundate the audiobook circuit, and it's going to go out that way, and it's going to be this and that." And the way I'm going about it, I pick and choose. So, yeah, I guess I'm at the wait and see too. I want to see if this is going to be something I want to go further in the audiobook world, or any of the other different ways that it could be offered, Kindle, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it's just having enough information about that world after having been, I mean, I have to say, as a mover shaker in theater, it's like, okay, if you have to push your plays, it means you take it to the theater. You know, you mail it to them, you follow up on it, you know, try to get to see as many plays as you can. You try to see what the casts are possible for your own place. It's that same type of drive that you have to put into promoting a book, for say, that you've been putting into playwriting. If you're of that, again, of that drive, you know.
Yeah, I really do think it takes drive, because, writing it is one thing, the artistic part of it is one thing, but then there's the marketing part of it, and you just can't leave it up to other folks. You're going to have to, sort of do that yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I mean, it's still a remarkable, it's a wonderful accomplishment, and it's already, you've sold a lot of it already, and you have a publisher behind you, and this is fantastic. I guess one last question: do you have any other books? Are you working on something else these days?
Oh yeah, but I just want to add to that. There's maybe in the chat too, or wherever you put that, the other things coming up. There's going to be a book signing in Stockton at the Stockton Museum at the end of April. Emil Guillermo is going to have me on his podcast, if you know Emil. So and then it's been contracted to be at the Book Passage up in Sausalito here, and it's in a couple other places. So it's visible, and that's all in the thing I sent you, in one of the files I sent you.
Yeah.
But as far as the other books, Golda and Mallory, both people we all know and love, are helping me with Katatagan, which is a book on Filipino American theater artists in the Bay Area. And pretty much working at it since about the same time, about 2017. And we're all very, very busy ladies, very busy. But in the meantime, I've been collecting this information about just names, just trying to get the names of Filipino American theater artists. And what we've come up across is that people, oh, no, I don't think I should be in that book. You think I should be in that book? Yeah, you're a theater, and I don't know, let me think, and it's still sort of that wait and see. It's like, oh, if so and so puts their name in, then maybe I'll and but it's gotten to be a good, what is it, I think it's up to 200, and those are ones that we've been trying to find with contact information, particularly websites and Twitter or something like that. So there'd be a place where people can say, this is where this person, this actor, this technician, this supporter, educator, just to show how active it is in trying to, in promoting theater arts for Filipino Americans, particularly in the Bay Area, which goes from Vallejo to San Juan Bautista and from the Bay Area to Sacramento. So that's the area we're concentrating on right now.
How helpful has, because you've been using, I sent you a bunch of MP3 files of the past interviews that we've had. Has that been helpful for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had to update it because I think since Jed and Melvin.
Oh, we've had a bunch, yeah.
Yeah. So but I'll probably have to, hit you up about something about that as well later on. But yeah, I want it. It's going to be a list in the book, so it's not like anything people can click on. They would have to manually put it in, but that's the only way I could figure is to make a concise list of how many people have just been interviewed and highlighted on the Yay. It's amazing if people knew that and hear how many different subject matters you cover that really show what a vibrant theater community this is. It would blow everybody's mind. I think people don't know you guys are, I wouldn't say you're still a secret, but you should be known.
I think a lot of people don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do the best we can. And obviously, we have our day jobs, and, Mallory, it's been wonderful having Mallory. Well, you should know because Mallory's helped you out in this book and also some other things, other researches as well.
Oh yeah. She helped me with the Stanford collection. She was amazing. So
no, Mallory's been fantastic. And so we're doing the best we can, but I'm very proud. I mean, if there's one thing, if I were to drop off the earth, God forbid that doesn't happen, but if I were to drop off the earth right now, I could say Norman and I did the Yay, and we brought out, among other things, the Philippine, community, and having folks come on to talk about their experiences. When we had Jed on, he talked about one famous story, when he did White at Shotgun Players, and they wanted him to play a type of a Philippine character based on cliches. He had to scold them. He was like, "What Philippine do you want tonight? Are you going to put on the traditional garb, and how do you want me to be?"
Yeah. Wow. You want me to tattoo my body? Which one do you want? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And Mike Dorado, talking about playing a bunch of other characters, not Filipino at all, because he could blend in, he could do so many different things, which is
Mhm.
very common among
I
Philippine.
know. I wanted to have him for the Baldwin reading. He's not available.
Oh, what a
Mhm.
shame. Yeah. And having Aureen Almario, come on to talk about her, experience at Bindlestiff and transitioning to being, in the executive staff
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how difficult that's been for her. I mean, she's doing an excellent job, but it's a big transition from being
Oh
on
yeah.
stage to running the stage. And
Yeah.
she's doing a fantastic job. I think Bindlestiff had their 30th anniversary a
Yeah.
couple of years back. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think having watched over the years the gradual growth of a Filipino visibility on the stage has just been amazing to me, because when I started, of course, here I am giving plays to people who say, "Oh, we can't cast that. We don't know Filipinos." I'm like, well, that's where you come in. You're the playwright. You go find them for us. I'm like, I'm going to be your casting director too. You
are
know.
they going to pay you for that? Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. And there's this community outreach. Can you do that as well? I'm the playwright.
Mm,
What do you what's your job? So I think that arc that has happened over the last few years um, was for just being pushy. Essentially, it's like, well, if I know Filipinos and they're in theater and they're in the Bay Area, you should be able to find them too.
Yeah.
You know,
And that applies
um,
to Filipino actors as well, because there are a lot of folks who wanted to just stay in Bindlestiff and, just stay in that little wonderful, warm club.
mhm,
But then there's a revolution of, actors who are branching out, like Marco
yeah,
Dorado's done a bunch of other things, and
yeah.
Jet Rosario and Melvin
Chuck
Badiola.
Blackson, Julie Kuwabara. I mean, you see them all over San Francisco Bay Area stages now, and it's like they do it. They make it work.
Yeah. And
yeah,
even
I wish
Jeffrey.
there was a way that Bendel-Stiff would find a connection, keep a connection with those folks, including you. That it'd be nice to feel like there was, not just the new energy that's coming up, but also appreciating the folks that have already stepped up to that next level and bringing them back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for saying that, because there's been sort of I don't know, a voice, some for some people who say, "Oh, we've never seen so many Filipinos on stage at once." I'm like, no, no, that's there have been masses of Filipinos on stage in the Bay
Right.
Area,
Oh yeah.
and they've been doing the work. It just didn't appear out of nowhere. So
Right.
you got to give credence to those people.
Yeah.
They've been paying their dues.
Yeah, and even Filipinos who are not connected with Bindlestiff, like we interviewed Mara Sotelo, who is doing amazing work. She came from Chicago into the Bay Area, and as a singer, she had a singing background, a beautiful singer, and she's been involved with Ferocious Lotus, and also I've been on stage with her for Town Hall Theater, and we had her on the show.
Mm.
So they're a bunch. Also, Brian Rivera. I don't think
Oh
Brian Rivera
yeah.
has a connection with Bindlestiff, but
Not directly, I don't think.
yeah. And actually, speaking of him, he'll be performing the Great Con at the San Diego Rep,
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
nice.
March the
Very
3rd through the
good.
27th. So that's
Very
awesome.
good. I can see him as that. Yeah.
All righty. It is well past the 1 hour mark. We're having so much fun. Any last words, Jeannie, before we wrap things up and do the shout outs and stuff like that?
um.
And we'll be
Yeah.
I have everything that you sent me, and we'll have a link to everything so that people can go to see, go to the book signings and go to the bookstores and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of bring up the point that I've been working with this group lately. There's three of us right now who are kind of the key people. Pinay playwrights, and it was okay. Who are they? What do you want to do? Well, we're part of the New Play Exchange. If you've heard of that, that's sort of like the clearinghouse for most playwrights to hook up with theaters, and both sides sort of pay into this group, and they say, okay, we'll hook you up with playwrights. They'll post their stuff. You guys get in touch. Like, oh,
Hmm.
so it's been really, really good. And so it turned out the New Play Exchange had um, um, a few of us who are Filipino American, 35, 35 playwrights were found through or tangentially, let's say, let's see if we can get together and get to know each other. It's
Hmm.
grown to 53. It's like amazing that there should be a group of us that have been working and doing our work or coming onto the scene recently. So that's something to just look out for. They're called Pinay Playwrights,
Mm.
and I'll keep you posted on that. But that's what's happening recently as well. And CAM, if you know CAM, Center for Asian American Media, they put together my dad's music. He was led a Filipino dominant group, but they were playing mostly Hawaiian music. But they played all sorts of music from LA along Route 66 into Chicago, into Milwaukee, where my family was born. And so they're all on MP3s now. And we were hoping to have a night of music at Manila Town Heritage Foundation, the old I Hotel. So we're kind of
Wow.
looking at that.
Now that is awesome. That is just, I didn't realize that your dad was a crooner, a singer.
Oh
Just like my
yeah,
dad. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the New Play Exchange. Yeah, Jim Kleiman, when he was on, he talked about that, and that is a wonderful. If there are any budding playwrights who are listening and watching this, we'll have a link. But you can go on and you can submit your plays. I've actually submitted a couple of plays,
Mm,
and throughout the United States, there are companies, there are schools, young theater companies that may pick up the play and and may produce it. So that's a wonderful repository, a wonderful place where you
yeah,
can read new plays, submit new plays, and get yourself known
yeah,
nationwide.
yeah. And just segueing too, there is another project that's coming up, and I'll just mention it. It's the Finding Manila Town. It's going to be a documentary, and it's also going to be a series of sorts. But more on that later, just to let you know that that's something that's exciting and on the horizon and going to be wonderful. So.
Fantastic. Well, Jeannie, thank you so much for being on. Shout outs, birthdays.
Birthdays. Yeah, last week there was a thin list. This week I got a big list.
You're
Uh,
making up for it.
Jessica Powell's birthday is today. Jessica has been in Bay Area theater forever. Wonderful actress. Um, Last time I saw her on stage was playing King Lear, playing the lead role in King Lear for the SF Shakes. That was their. We should have some name for that sort of COVID era, the lockdown shows.
Mm,
But they broadcast that or streamed it, but streamed it live. Like those actors, every performance were performing. They were all in their own home, and they did this whole OBS thing where they were able to put figures together so it looked like they were in the same space. Weird production. Anyway, last time I actually saw her was Great Expectations. She and her husband Jack came out, and that was really sweet. Sean O'Neill, I believe, is a principal of a high school now in West Sacramento, but I met him when the African American Shakespeare came out, and he was sort of our designated white guy.
mm,
Wonderful guy. Brittany Villars is the tech guru at Playground. She does lighting, I think, primarily, but she weighs in on a lot of stuff and is very much creating the sort of design vision with Playground. Emily Kieshian, I hope I pronounced that right, was, I think, my first daughter. I have no children, but I keep having more and more adult children on stage. I keep playing characters who have adults children, and she was my Ophelia in Hamlet. I played Polonius. Brian Quakenbush is an amazing actor. I am at that point where I really don't want to see the latest production of like As You Like It or Midsummer Night's Dream, whatever. I saw him in an As You Like. No, it was Twelfth Night. They're very similar plays. It was Twelfth Night, and he was just brilliant. He was running a company here called Round Belly, and then he moved to Canada. So I hope he is still making theater. Tessa Koenig Martinez, her
oh,
birthday coming up this
yay.
week. Yay. Director, actor, teacher, dear heart. And this is her first year without her mother. Her
Mm,
mother Oh God, I don't want to even try and mess up her name. I think it was Elizabeth Martinez. Was a major activist in the Bay Area, not in the Bay
Wow.
Area, nationally. Like the New York Times did a big obit for her last year.
Wow.
So this will be Tessa's first year without mom. Stephanie Taylor, wonderful local actor. Every now and then I meet somebody like this, and they're just so amazing. Amazing comic actor. I'm like, how come we're not hearing about you? Like, you should be on everybody's stage. Darren Wilkerson, I went to San Francisco State with, African American director. He was really identifying at that point as a director, and I kind of lost track of him, so I'd love to hear what he's up to now. Argo Thompson, I actually get to highlight a show. Argo Thompson is the artistic director of the Left Edge Theater that's up in, it's near Santa Rosa. I actually have it open on my screen right now. I think it's Rohnert Park. Anyway, it's up in there, up in the North Bay, and they've got a show that I will pitch when we get to show shout outs. Deirdre Renee's birthday is coming up this week. Deirdre Renee is about to move, so if you know Deirdre Renee and you want to see her, excuse me, before she goes on the 24th, she's going to have a little goodbye gathering, and you can ask me. I'm not going to like broadcast her party info, but her birthday's coming up this week. Moni Law, somebody I went to high school with, and I can't even remember if she ever did any theater in high school, but I will always shout her out as a theater person because during the Obama years, she got to be a double for Michelle Obama. They flew her
Ah,
all over the country to play Michelle Obama.
Wow, she looks like Michelle
wow.
Obama, huh?
And she looks enough like she's taller and, right complexion, and, she's got as many wigs as Michelle Obama has. So. And then the last one I have is Tim Niffen with a K, Kniffen. Tim Niffen. I can't even remember how our paths first crossed, but I was delighted to see him a few years ago in, oh God, what's it called? Trouble in Mind, which was at the Aurora Theater, a beautiful play about a Broadway production in rehearsal of a black play that is trying to be edgy in like the 50s and having trouble crossing that line. And he had to play the white director in that, who was a little bit out to lunch. And he did a wonderful job. But I know Tim, and my heart was just sort of breaking for him as the show was going on. I'm like, Tim's not like this at all. Tim is such a sweet guy. Anyway, his birthday's coming up next Friday, I believe. And that's my birthday list. Happy birthday, y'all.
Happy
All right.
birthday.
And I have a list. Michael Cavita, we just had her on 2 podcasts ago. Her birthday is February the 6th. Although neither Norman and I have worked with her, she's worked with Kim Donovan, and Kim Donovan suggested her. I believe she was in Dirty Butterfly.
Yeah. Oh God, she's amazing. She's amazing in Dirty Butterfly. She's just amazing, period.
Yeah. So her birthday is February the 6th. Happy birthday, Micah. Also, February the 6th, I always bring up the Ellingtonites that I graduated with. Nicole Prescott, formerly Nicole Bobbitt, an amazing dancer and actress. And I think she's in LA these days, and a model. February the 6th is her birthday. On February the 8th, I recently had someone contacted me via Facebook saying, "Hey, can I be a Facebook friend?" I'm like, "Who are you?" And she's an Ellingtonite. She was like, "I graduated from Ellington, but I'm, I graduated like 1992 or 93." I'm like, "Okay." But she just wanted to reach out to contact me. So, the Ellington family is rich that way. So her birthday, she's a budding actress. Her birthday is February the 8th. Also on February the 8th, we've had him on, Raymond Ray. So when the whole Dave Chappelle transgendered controversy thing was happening, we brought in some individuals to give their perspective. And Raymond Ray, a good friend of mine, a transgendered male, gave wonderful perspective on,
Incredible.
Yeah.
I was so sure we were going to get in trouble with the podcast right before that one. And then he came in and I was like, we still might get in trouble. It was a unique perspective. I really appreciated us being able to share that with the world.
Yeah. And I think, it's important to talk about these things. We may have controversial things and people may not agree or disagree, but we need to talk about these things. What does it mean to be transgendered? And he is one who of course, he's been living with this and he's been talking about this. He wrote a play, The Sweet New, which talked about his transition from being a woman to a man, but also the transition of his family, very much similar to your book, Jeannie, about his family transitioning from being Italians to coming to America, and how sometimes the transition is not as smooth as you want it to be, because, you know, sometimes you can assimilate so much that other family members just eschew you and say, you know, we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So, and I've worked with Ray. I was a stage manager when we did Water Buffalo, and also he directed the play, The Marriage of Bet and Boo. So a very good friend of mine. He is a teacher now. He's a film teacher in Minnesota. So Ray, happy birthday to you. Also, February the 9th, Dove Hassan, the husband of Linda Amayo Hassan, who had her, she did a thing at Playground, a solo act, Playground solo, last night.
Oh, wow, yay.
So Dove is her husband. They both teach at Chabot College, doing amazing work, you know, feeding the minds of young budding actors and actresses. His birthday is February the 9th. February the 10th, I think you saved this for me, Helena Alvarez. I've got to get her on. She was our Fatima, and also our Julia Wright when we did Four Men in Paris.
No, I don't think she's my Facebook friend. I didn't pull her up.
Yeah. So Helena, she's been busy. I think she's been off the grid, busy, basically having a family. You know, she has 2 kids now, and her husband, and just living the life and loving the family life, the domestic life. And we've talked a couple of times. She said, you know, I love you guys. I want to get back on the show. I try not to push her, but she's a wonderful presence, and her birthday is February the 10th. And the last one that I have is Christine Mccomber. She's a older veteran actress. She and I were on the stage. We did Grey Gardens together. Grey Gardens, the story of the Bouvier family. This is the niece, I don't know, cousin of Jacqueline Bouvier. In any case, rich people living in a very reclusive mansion with nothing but cats, and there was a documentary on it, there was a play on it, and she played the older Bouvier, and she's an amazing singer, an amazing actress, and her birthday is on February the 10th. And those are my birthdays. Shows.
Lots of shows. As You Like It is, ironically, after I complain about the play, As You Like It is at the Maskers Theater for a couple more weeks through the 19th. Bedelia, I can't even say her last name, is playing Phoebe in it. She was my fellow understudy in Pericles last summer. The Tempest, I don't know why this is all about Shakespeare all of a sudden, but The Tempest is being done by the Oakland Theater Project. That goes through March 13th. And then Either, and the name of the show is Either. It's a U.S. premiere by Ruby Thomas. And that will be going through February 20th at the Left Edge Theater Company, and that's where Argo Thompson is. And I've got 2 more. Brava is doing something called I Too Sing America, and that'll be through February 13th. It looks like it's more a movement piece, but I would assume with a title like that, that it's a combination of poetry and movement. I don't really have many details on it. The last one I will give out is, if people are looking for something to do for Valentine's Day, Coleman Domingo will be in town. I believe the, what is it called? The New Conservatory Theater, I believe, is doing one of his plays.
Wow.
But the Magic, he has agreed to come out and host a fundraiser for the Magic Theater. So you can do Valentine's with Coleman Domingo, and you can get information at the Magic Theater.
Cool.
I thought you were going to push the Baldwin Project, because we're doing our first read through.
Oh, God. And of course, yes, Baldwin Project is happening the 19th February. That's a Saturday from 3 to 5 at the Peralta Historical Hacienda House. And then a week later, on the 26th, in San Francisco at the Bayfront Theater in Fort Mason. And that's it's just going to be a staged reading. It's actually just a chance for us to kind of celebrate launching the website. And I didn't say that. Oh my God! So my other big new and good this week is I got accepted into the Innovator Incubator program with Playground. Oakland Public Theater got accepted as a company that they will be fiscal sponsoring us, and there's a whole lot of
Oh,
connecting to
wow.
how the company grows. I know, I'm sorry, I'm horrible at
Congratulations.
acknowledging these things.
That's big.
But anyway, so this reading will be a chance for us to sort of celebrate the launch of the Baldwin Centennial Project. And
Yeah, and
Reg
there
will
I
be
saw.
prominently featured in it.
Oh well, I don't know about prominently.
You
Whoever's
better
going
be
to play
prominent.
Baldwin, but yeah, I saw the website. The I can't even pull up the website, but it was wonderful. The
Baldwin
Baldwin Project.
Centennial Project. We should put that. Yeah, we should add that one in. I'll add it into
Yeah,
my list and send it to you.
yeah, I'm excited about that, and that should be really, really nice. And well, we I guess I was going to mention an individual who may be playing Baldwin, but we may not mention his or her name until we know for sure.
Baldwin, I don't have. No. If you're talking about our boy is a fucking flake, and I could
Oh,
be happy if I never have to talk to him again. I'm sorry.
I
I'm
was
done. Reg, let me put this out here publicly. I am effing done with him. I would love it if you never recommend him to me again because he has flaked numerous times and I'm
Yeah.
just tired. I'm tired
My
of it.
my apologies. What about Diana Lauren Jones?
She's busy that day for one of the readings she can't do. She is going to actually help us. We're supposed to have an event page up. Hopefully it'll be up before the end of the day. And she's
Okay.
going to help manage that.
Yeah,
They're doing some home stuff. She and her partner Alex are doing some stuff with their home, and so she can't
I
commit
hear
to
you.
getting out to do
Yeah.
something.
It's funny mentioning Baldwin. I saw a picture of Tandiwe in Atlanta, and
Ah,
he apparently is playing Alexander Dumas. I don't know what the
Yay!
project is,
Andy
but
Way.
he looks
Yay.
fantastic. I saw the promotion photos and things. So he's
Hmm.
tearing it up in the Dirty Dirty ATL. That's fantastic.
Good for him.
Shows Pulp Scripture. So we've talked about Pulp Scripture when William Bivens came on, episode 206.
Oh, I'm so glad you remembered this one. Yes.
Yeah. So apocryph apocryph apoc,
Yeah, that's a
apoc,
hard one, isn't it?
yeah, apocryphamedia.com. And we'll have the link. You can click onto it. So these are basically podcasts. It's almost like it's like a radio theater, but it's only like 15 minutes. It's like pocket radio theater, and it focuses on the Bible, and it's like a funny take on the Bible, sketches.
Okay.
And episode 7, they have the shameful origin of Moab and Ammon. So check out Apocrypha Media.
And those
Pulp
have been
Scripture.
so fun. He gets wonderfully talented people, and then they just tear it up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
mhm.
Also, the Pear Theater is doing the Mountaintop, which is a take on Martin Luther King Jr. Apparently, Martin Luther King Jr. has a mystery individual that visits him and motivates him. And that mystery person is played by Damaris DeVito. Remember, we had her on, and she was actually in my play, Judicial Process, where she played the maid, and she was fantastic. So that will be February the 3rd through the 20th. That's Mountaintop, the Pear Theater. We've talked about My Hate Letter to the Great American Theater, Shotgun Players.
Yay.
That will be live and I believe streaming February the 17th through the 20th. And we'll have a link to that. And of course, Golda Sargento, aka Rebel Maria, is in that. Carmen, Opera San Jose is doing Carmen. And I bring this up because Brenna Kimmerly, and she's been on the show, episode 203, will be in it February the 12th through the 27th. So if you're into opera, check out Carmen. The Hollow, City Lights Theater, and Yumi Kabori is in that show. That has been running since January the 20th, and it'll end February the 20th. Dot, the new Conservatory Theater Center, is doing a play called Dot.
That's Coleman Domingo's play.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah.
There we are.
Oh,
Great
cool.
minds think alike. And it's being directed by Sean J. West, March the 4th through April the 3rd. We had Dr. Stephanie Johnson on the show. That was a great interview that we had. And I'm so glad that you brought her in, Norman. She's teaching a class on lighting, hosted by the Oakland Theater Project, The Magic of Lighting. And that'll be March the 7th through the 28th in person. I believe it's also being streamed, and we have a link to that as well
Oh,
if you
cool.
want to learn more about the ins and outs of lighting, and especially from the perspective of an African-American lighting designer, which is very rare, and an African-American female lighting designer. And she's a professor. She teaches this. So that's cool. It was a great podcast because we talked about the effects, like how lighting from a perspective of someone who is African-American and different skin tones and just, a different way of looking at how to light the stage. And also there are a couple of podcasts that we always push. Barry Graves has a podcast out, The Black Man's Heart. So check that out. Barry Graves is, of course, our Richard Wright in 4 Men in Paris. Mallory Samara, our wonderful consulting producer, is producing a podcast for KCBS Radio called Connect the Dots. So check that out. And also Bindlestiff Studios has a podcast called The Fobcast, exploring Philippine-American immigrant stories. So check that out on all of your podcast apps. So that is it. Jeannie, did you have a good time?
I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much. Could I just say something about it? It's about the Bindlestiff group, but we just found out yesterday that Lorna Chewy Velasco and her sister, their mother died. Oh. She was very active in supporting Bindlestiff. So they're having a private memorial for her. But I just wanted people to know that, the support that helped Bindlestiff and her own daughters and the group in general was through the efforts of people like their mother. Her name is Remedios Aquino Chewy. So
yes, and I've worked with her daughters, Deanne, who wrote "They Gotta Love These Immigrants," and also Lorna Velasco Ho, I think, directed that. And they're wonderful people, and you can just tell the love that they exude comes from their mother, who of course supported them in theater. And it was tragic. I did see that their mother had passed away. And we do want to give our regards and our thoughts and prayers to the family, to the Velasco family, the Chewy family. All righty. Well, you're listening to this on you're probably watching this on YouTube. We're going to post this on YouTube. So please like and subscribe. Let us know what you like and what you don't like. And give us a thumbs up and hit the, what do they call it? The bell, so that you can get more updates on when we post things on the Yay.
But everybody loves it, don't they?
Well, every now and then you can get the, hey, you didn't mention me and this and that and the other. And we've actually had people come on saying,
that's the problems we want.
Yeah, exactly. Please tell us. And also, if you want to be on the Yay, that's how we got Deborah Cortez. She listened to the Yay and it was like, hey, interview me. And we interviewed her, and she is a rising star. So if you want to be on the Yay, let us know. If you're listening to us on the podcast app, if you're on the iPhone or iPad, you can listen to us on Spotify and on that purple podcast app that that's on every iPhone and iPad. If you are an Android user, you can use the SoundCloud app, or just go on soundcloud.com and you'll find us. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, or if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. We're on the Yay3. That's our official Twitter feed. Also, I'm at Reg Space Clay.
And I'm at Who's Your Hoosier.
And Jeannie, you have your own personal website. You have JeannieBarroga.com. Are you also on social media at all, Jeannie?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I think that's pretty much. Oh, LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jeannie Barroga?
Yes.
Is that how people can find you?
Yeah.
There you go. So if you're looking for, especially for individuals who own theater companies, and you're looking for a play that's innovative and interesting, you can't go wrong with Jeannie. Contact her. And if you're interested in learning more about the book, we'll have all sorts of postings on where you can buy the book and where you can go for book readings and book signings. And so we'll have that. That is it. I'm going to grab some lunch. It's wonderful. Thank you so much this Saturday morning. Everyone have a great time. And as Norman and I always say, we've got to find
a better
sign off. And we are out.